Hey guys, welcome back. It's Chala from PS I Love You. Thank you for joining me on my channel. Today we're going to be making this awesome window pop-up card with the Mermaid for You stamp set from Fawn. And this is a really great set. I like how it actually interacts with a couple of their other older sets, Fantastic Friends and Your Sublime. I like that you can mix and match. And how we're going to start off today is I have this card stock here, and it's going to be cut to 6 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And you're going to cut two pieces of those. You'll need a front and a back for this. And I'm going to pull out my little score buddy here, and we're going to score each side of this piece. So I've got the long side of the cardstock there, the 6 1/4, and I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch on this left hand side, and then I'm going to score it at the 1 inch mark as well. And what we're doing is we're setting up the fold lines for this pop-up card. So let's flip this 180 degrees. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. It'll be scored at a 1/2 inch. And then again at the 1 inch mark. So you're going to do this for both of your pieces, the front and the back part of your card. So again, we'll lay this on the score buddy, and we're going to score it at the 1/2 inch, and again at the 1 inch. Turn your piece 180 degrees, and then do the same thing at the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch. So we'll basically be creating almost like an accordion fold, or we are creating an accordion fold on this, and then we'll put those two pieces together. But there's a little bit of prep work that we need to do. I want to create the window portion of our card, and this is the front part, and I'm just using these stitched circle dies. I think it would be really fun if you had other shapes like stars, or you can do rectangles or squares, but to keep this simple, I'm just going to be using the circle die today. So I want to line this up closer to the center top portion of the card. I want to leave room for my stamp sentiment underneath. So I'm just using the grid of my work surface there just to see if I can get this centered. Now this one is a bit big. I'm worried that if I cut using this really big one, the sides of the card are going to be a little weak. This is 80-pound cardstock, which you want to use 80-pound or heavier, just so that when you remove this hole, that your card still maintains some stability. If you're using a thinner cardstock, you may want to actually put two pieces together. You could actually cut one of them bigger than the other and then just layer them on top. So I'm just putting my washi tape on the back of my hand, and then I will tape my die down by putting it on the back of my hand. The oils from my hand will make the washi tape less sticky, so it doesn't rip my cardstock. Sometimes when you run it through the die cutting machine, it presses it down, and when you go to release it, it can tear your paper. So I run that through my Gemini Junior, and it cut out really nicely. I had no issues there. So I'll set that aside, and I want to do the ink blending, the distress ink blending on the back portion of the card. So this is the portion you're going to see through that window that we cut out. Now the colors that I'm going to be using are Mermaid Lagoon, Salty Ocean, and Faded Jeans. And I'm using my Picket Fence blending brush just to do some blending. I find that this brush really does a great job of blending the colors nicely together. Sometimes when I use the regular circular sponges, I get that circle impression on my card, and I don't like that. I don't like that sometimes it doesn't blend nicely. Now if I want to do a really heavy ink blending, then I'll use my sponges, but this again, I want a nice light airy feel. I want an underwater feel for this, so I'll use these brushes. And I'm going back and forth in between these colors. I want to create some shadows, some darker areas underwater. I'll bring this back in for reference. I used a hillside border, the Fawn hillside border, just to cut this darker cardstock, and that's going to be a little sand hill underneath in my scene. And I just want to lay it there so that I can get an idea of where I want to lay those darker colors to create the shadows that little sand hill under the water would create. Now I did do some ink blending on that brown cardstock there, that little hill piece that you see, and I blended the ground espresso just to add a little bit of dimension and texture to that piece as well. So again, just going back and forth between these colors until I get the look of the blending that I like and get the feel of that underwater look that we're going for. Now you don't have to do just an underwater theme for these type of cards. I think it would be really cute to use the jungle themes that they have out there, some animals. You can do all sorts of things, maybe with birds. Really let yourself, your imagination go wild with these of what you could create. I think using a square and kind of making it look like you're looking into somebody's house through a window or out into nature, that would be fun too. So I wanted to use this happy birthday sentiment. It comes with the Hey There stamp set. I didn't have one that I liked, or there wasn't one with that mermaid set for happy birthday, so I just used this other one from Fawn, and I'm stamping it with VersaFine Clair Nocturne Black ink. If you watch my videos or follow my blog, you know that this is my absolute favorite sentiment ink, as it always stamps nicely. Alright, so I'm moving back to this piece that we distress inked. I want to add some spritzes and sprinkles of water to create bubble look of that underwater scene. So I'm just kind of sprinkling it on. I spritzed the paper first, and then I spritzed it in my hand, and then just kind of drop the droplets on top. I'm using my microfiber cloth to just kind of blot that up, and it gives you a little bit of those bubbles. I'm just going to add a few more. Again, you let it sit for just a little bit and then blot it up, and you can see it kind of gives that underwater bubble look. Alright, so we have our two pieces, and now it's time to go ahead and fold this accordion style. So if you're doing the front first, you're going to fold the innermost score line back, and then fold the second one back out again. It's kind of hard to explain with words, but you can see it there in the video of how I'm doing that. And we're going to do the opposite with the back piece. So we're going to fold the innermost score line in, and just use my bone folder there to give a nice good crease, and then you're going to fold on the second score line back out. And then what we'll do is we'll end up adhering these two pieces together. So as you can see there, they fit nicely together, and it forms our little shadow box. Alright, so from here we're going to start building our scene. Now, like I said, I went ahead and I stamped the images from Fawn's Mermaid for you, a few images from Fantastic Friends, as well as some from Your Sublime. I stamped and Copic colored those off screen just because it would take too long, and then I just fussy cut them out. I also have a few dies of seaweed and kind of coral pieces that you see here. I can't remember where I got these from, but they seem to work perfectly for this. So what I did is I just die cut those out of two different colors of green cardstock, and then I used that ground espresso, again just doing some ink blending on top just to give them a little bit more texture, depth, and dimension. Alright, so you can see I have a lot of little images here. I'm not going to be using them all today for this card, but I definitely will be making more of these cards, and I can use the rest of the images for that. So I'm laying my little hill in the window there to get an idea of where I want to place everything, and I do want to add as much dimension as possible. Now just keep in mind, if you plan on mailing this, you'll want to use either like a bubble envelope or a bigger envelope so that this will fit in there if you're adding lots of dimension to it, and you're probably going to have to add extra postage. This is actually going to go into a package that's going to my niece, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm using my little foam squares here, and I'm going to pop up the little sand hill with this. Again, it'll give more dimension to our scene, and you'll see that once we move along here. I go a little bit crazy with the foam squares. I really like to make sure that it's not going anywhere and it's not going to be sagging anywhere. And I didn't put any on the top because I want to tuck some of my elements behind there, and if I did put the little squares there, that wouldn't work very well. All right, making sure I get the placement right. Then I'll just stick that down, and I think that looks good. So we'll press it down. And then now I'm going to layer up the seaweed, and I like how this one looks. I'm going to adhere that to the top of the card. Got my little mermaid there. I think I'm going to, I decided I wanted to suspend her. I know that the little treasure chest will look nice behind the lower portion of that sandhill, so I'm going to tuck that there. And here's this adhesive, or sorry, acetate strip that I just trimmed down, and I'm going to adhere my little mermaid onto it so that it looks like she's floating in the water. So I want to use a nice strong adhesive for that, and this is the strongest adhesive tape out there. It's the Be Creative score tape. It's my absolute favorite. It never seems to let me down. Sometimes it's almost too sticky. If you make a mistake and have to rip it apart, it will kind of ruin your project. So just be careful. All right, so I adhere my little mermaid down, and then I can actually just tuck her in between those two pieces, and she'll be suspended in the air there, and it looks like she's floating. So again, just laying out some of these little images and figuring out what I want to be included in the scene and where I'm going to place it. And there's so many images to choose from that I had a hard time choosing. I almost felt like I didn't want to leave anybody out, and so yeah, I'll definitely be making more cards. Right, so from here, my big old head in the way, I'm going to be adhering these with the Tombow Mono Multi Glue. That's one of my favorite liquid adhesives. What I like about that adhesive is it has a little wiggle room for you. It doesn't glue down as quickly as the score tape would, and it allows you just to kind of have some time to move the images around if you don't get them exactly where you want them right away. So as you can see, I'm just laying these images out, and then we'll go ahead and get them glued down. And I'll jump ahead here. You can see I'm just gluing down some of the last images. I highly recommend when you're using small pieces like this to use some reverse tweezers. They really do come in handy when you're placing small, delicate pieces down. So the scene is coming together nicely, and I have my mermaid here that I need to get secured yet, and I'll show you how I do that. Getting her in the general area. And then I'm going to be using the score tape, and I'll run the score tape along that flap edge of the card. I'm just going to glue down this one last little shell. And again, you can see how those reverse tweezers come in handy. And then this last seaweed piece, I wanted it to be adhered to the front. And again, like I had mentioned, using this mono glue works really well to have some wiggle room, and I needed that here when I was putting this one down. I have the mono glue in a separate little container. I think I bought that off of Amazon. It's just got a really nice fine nozzle on it so that the glue comes out slower and at smaller amounts, which worked well for this really delicate piece. Okay, so now I need to work with my little mermaid and get her situated. I think that looks good. Have her more to the top. So I'll take my score tape and I will run it along those little flap folded edges. And one trick I would recommend, I didn't really do it this time, but when you're trying to adhere two pieces together with score tape, I recommend not pulling off all of the release paper at once. I would pull it kind of halfway down and then fold it kind of at a right angle, so that way you can put the two pieces together and then just pull that release paper out so that it doesn't, that you can get everything lined up and it doesn't adhere wonky. You can see that in some of my other videos. I'll try and have a video linked at the end there where you can see that, but it makes it just a little bit easier. And you'll see, I think I bring that, yeah, I bring that release paper back, but I needed to adhere that acetate down first, and I line my edges up, and then you'll see I will pull the release paper out now, and then I don't have to worry about it not adhering crooked on there. That's always the worst. Last thing you want to do is get this far into your project and then have to like rip it apart and ruin your piece. So this just kind of saves that. Making sure it's all nice and lined up. And oh, I didn't show how I pulled the release paper out, but you can kind of, I think I'll do it here. I kind of fold it up. If I can get it to adhere down properly, fold it up, and I give it a little fold. And then I'll fold this piece down, give it a little fold, and then I can line up the edges nicely. Make sure they are straight and at the bottom. And then I can simply just pull that release paper out and it adheres down nicely. I don't have to worry about it. So there you go. And then I'll just go ahead and reinforce those folds on my card. I need to cut that acetate on the left-hand side off now that it's all secured. And I'll do that with my cutter bee scissors. Just trim off a little straggle there. And there, that pretty much finishes our card. I've got all my little elements in there glued on. I do add one more seaweed piece on the left-hand side, as well as I do add a couple images on the front of the card, but that really is it. It's a really simple card. I did channel my inner Jennifer McGuire today for this one. That's where I got the idea from, was her channel, and definitely check her out. I'm sure you have already, but she's just got some great ideas, and I love just kind of taking inspiration from her and trying to create my own take on the cards that she creates. So I'm just going to adhere this sweet little narwhal down. And then I'll add the little seahorse on the top there. And then that kind of just finishes it off. Now you can add some sequins or gems to this. I decided not to. I thought I'd just keep this one fairly simple. And it's hard not to add all the elements there because they're all so adorable. I wanted to add every single little critter in there, but I definitely had to refrain from doing that this time. Alright, I got that last little critter on there. And if you pull it on the sides, you can actually see the little mermaid kind of move. It's kind of neat how that works. I really like that look. So cute. Alright, so I'm going to show you one more time the image up close. I added that little bit extra seaweed there on the left behind the narwhal, and just look at the depth and dimension. I love how cool this looks. And again, there's so many different stamp sets that you can use to create these little scenes. I feel like I could just stare at it and get lost. If you'd like, you could add a piece of acetate on the front as well. Just to give it a little different look, you can write your sentiment here on the back. You can also adhere this to an A2 size card. I just didn't think I was going to do that this time. I would add a little bulk for me anyways. So here's a close-up look of the card. Again, look at that. You can see the kind of like the little bubbles in the background from the water that we spritzed on there. The different layers that we added with that little sand hill, and then tucking the images in the back, adhering elements to the back part of the front portion of the card also gives it lots of interest and dimension. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe and like button so that you don't miss anything. And remember to head on over to the Scrap and Stamp blog to check out more items that they have on sale today. Alright guys, thanks so much and take care.